Almost exactly 1 year ago, in November of 2022, Chat GPT took the world by storm. Within 5 days, it had 1 million users. Within 8 weeks, 100 million. It was the fastest adoption of a new technology product the world had ever seen. What fewer people know, however, is the decades-long story of the company that developed the technology that Chat GPT and much of AI as we know it today relies on.
Jensen is here, of course, the CEO of Nvidia. As I mentioned at the top of the day, this is the clear winner of every winner in the world of artificial intelligence.
What an amazing year!
I think we want to try to reach new heights as a civilization, discovering the nature of the universe.
His company powers everything from OpenAI, Google's programs, Meta. We're all frenemies in some ways. We'll talk about it.
Nvidia is now worth over $5 trillion.
It just continues to go higher. It is opening at a $5 trillion market cap.
But do you know that once upon a time, the company was on the verge of collapse? Over 3 decades, it nearly went bankrupt multiple times, but came back stronger each time.
He kept a list of all the companies that were building 3D graphics, and it was being published every single week. And then one week it came out and we were left off that list. And I said, why'd you leave us off the list? He said, well, I thought you guys went out of business.
How did Nvidia manage to survive every failure while others disappeared? And how did a company that once made gaming chips find itself at the center of the entire AI revolution? Since founding, Nvidia stock has exploded by over 497,000%, turning employees into multi-millionaires, and making its CEO Jensen Huang the 8th richest person in the world with a whopping net worth of 173 billion USD.
I've created more billionaires on my management team than any CEO in the world.
His company is now larger than every economy in the world except US and China. Nvidia is now larger than the biggest pharma companies combined, all the major banks combined, and every major tech companies in the world.
We have a $10 trillion market cap target for Nvidia by 2030, and I will be candid and tell you I think it's too low.
This is not a fiction. Nvidia chips are now the new oil of the digital age, and the world is addicted to it. So, how did it all happen? Jensen Huang was born in Taiwan and moved to the US at the age of 9 because his father hoped for him to receive a better education. After graduating from University of Oregon at just 16, Jensen secured his first job at AMD as a microchip processor and later switched job to Sun Microsystems, a chip division of LSI Logic. He also pursued a master's degree in electrical engineering at Stanford University. At Sun Microsystems, Jensen would meet 2 engineers who would change his life forever, Chris Malachowski and Curtis Priam.
I'm Jensen Huang. I'm the president and CEO of Nvidia. I met Chris and Curtis. They were at Sun Microsystems. I was at LSI Logic. So we were all from the workstation industry, and all we had ever worked on were Sun workstations and Valid workstations and things like that.
Malachowski had previously worked at Hewlett-Packard and graduated from University of Florida. And Priam created the world's first graphic processor for personal computers at IBM. The 3 became close friends.
Chris and Curtis were building chips at Sun Microsystems, and I was the assigned engineer to work with them from LSI Logic.
So in essence, Jensen was assigned to me, and that started a friendship between the 3 of us.
But one year, there were quite a few changes to the graphics architecture. The chips Malachowski and Priam worked on wasn't industry standard anymore. After fighting over the issue with senior management, the 2 decided to quit, hoping their good friend Jensen would join them. Jensen was hesitant at first. He had a family to look after, but eventually...
They kept asking me, and finally I said, well, tell you what, why don't we just go out and we can think through what kind of company you guys can go build.
And so the legendary meeting took place in a Denny's restaurant in San Jose, where Jensen used to work as a waiter.
I used to wash dishes at Denny's, and I was a busboy at Denny's, and I was a waiter at Denny's, so I really liked Denny's. I mean, Denny's I consider my first company.
So what was their plan? Let's just say it's all about PC. In 1980s, video games shifted from being exclusively arcade to being available in people's homes thanks to the rise of gaming consoles. 90s gave rise to many popular games, such as Final Fantasy, The Legend of Zelda, and Super Mario. Although PC in the 1990s was still a relatively new concept, but founders believed that with the rise of the internet, it was only a matter of time for it to be popularized, and that PC was next in line for gaming.
This is now 1993. The PC revolution really started in 1995. We knew that the PC was able to reach price points and a level of ease of use that might actually have a chance to become quite pervasive. And so we were excited about the PC revolution.
But this man had never seen a PC before. Computers were still a new concept in the 1990s. So they went out and bought a Gateway 2000 and immediately broke it apart to see how each piece worked. But there was a bigger problem. They had no money. But what they did have were years of experience and the right industry connections. Especially Johnson, who reached out to his former boss Wilfred Corrigan. Corrigan introduced Johnson to Don Valentine of Sequoia Capital, a promising connection that would change everything.
Wilf said, look, if you're going to start a company, go talk to Don Valentine. And while I was sitting there, he picked up the phone and he said, hey, Don, I'm going to send a kid your way. He's one of my best employees. I'm not sure what he's going to do, but give him money.
Johnson flew out to pitch him the business idea, but not to mention the presentation was a disaster. And yet somehow, Don Valentine wrote the check anyway, $20 million. But it came with a chill warning that Johnson would never forget. If you lose my money, Don said, I'll kill you.
And his point is that in order for Nvidia to succeed, we needed another startup to succeed. And that other startup was Electronic Arts. And then on the way out, he reminded me that Electronic Arts' CTO is 14 years old and had to be driven to work by his mom. And he just wanted to remind me that that's who I'm relying on. And then after that, he said, if you lose my money, I'll kill you. And that was kind of my memories of that first meeting.
What about the name? Whenever someone would save a file to the computer, they'll use NV, meaning next version. So they thought they'll look for a name with NV in them and came across a Latin word, Nvidia, meaning envy. The name was fitting because Priam wanted competitors to turn green and envious of their success. On April 5th, 1993, the empire that would come to be known as Nvidia was born. Ever since the very beginning, Nvidia struggled. The company almost went out of business following the release of their first ever NV1 chip. It was a great technology with everything you could ask for. It had both 2D and 3D graphics, video processing, and video acceleration. Plus, it would be compatible with Sega Saturn console that were about to hit the market. So, what went wrong? Well, first, it was too expensive.
The way I've always thought about it is we built a Swiss Army knife with lots of functions, and the chip was overpriced for what the market wanted. The market wanted a 3D graphics chip, and that's it. And they wanted it as cheap as they could get it and as fast as they could get it. And so it was a flop.
The second problem is that everyone else in the industry was using triangles to render graphics. Nvidia decided to go a different route and build NV1 around quadratic primitives. Sounds innovative, but it came with a huge problem. It didn't work with existing systems, and right after NV1's launch, Microsoft rolled out DirectX, which only supported triangle-based graphics.
Our customer partner, Diamond Multimedia, we sold them 250,000 NV1s. The retail sales wasn't very good. Diamond panicked. They returned, basically, most of those products to us. 250,000 units went out, 249,000 came back and practically put us out of business.
Nvidia was down to its last month of payroll. Johnson had no choice but to lay off half of its employee base. Our company is 30 days away from going out of business, became the signature line for Johnson during those dark times in Nvidia history. Things got even worse when Nvidia's partnership with Sega fell apart because he failed to deliver chips on time for the Dreamcast console. Just when it seemed Nvidia's fate was sealed, Johnson pulled off an impossible deal with Sega CEO Shoichiro Irimajiri, once again saving the company from bankruptcy.
He asked me what I'm asking him to do, and so I told him that although there's no reason for him to do this, I would like him to let us off of our contract, relieve us of our responsibility of fulfilling the contract, but pay us in full. And they got absolutely nothing out of it. There was no reason for him to do it, and he thought about it for a couple of days, came back to me and said, I'd like to help you.
With $5 million fresh capital from Irimajiri, Nvidia survived, but they are down to their final shot, and it's now do or die.
2023
Nvidia With their backs now against the wall and competitors closing in, Nvidia had no choice. Their next chip had to be flawless. But there's one massive problem. Final chip testing usually takes months, and the company couldn't afford to wait that long. So what did Jensen do? He performed the world's first PC chip emulation through now a defunct company named ICOS. ICOS is a hardware company that sells emulators, which allows you to prototype your chips many months in advance. So in April 1977, Riva 128 was born and immediately became a commercial success. This time, they fixed the compatibility issue, standardized in triangle primitives, and it was much cheaper to develop. It was also the first chip to have both 2D and 3D acceleration, which means game over for competitors. Within the first 4 months, they sold over 1 million units, a runaway success that stands in contrast to how badly MV1 performed. The following year, Nvidia launched Riva TNT, an even more powerful chip than its predecessor. Right now, Nvidia is a serious contender within the chip-making industry. Nvidia went public in 1999 on Nasdaq, and all of a sudden found itself with billions of dollars to spend. That same year, the company dropped what was arguably the most advanced graphic chips the world had ever seen, the GeForce 256. This was the first true GPU, aka graphics processing unit. Before this, your computer's CPU had to handle everything. This includes graphics, calculations, lighting, everything. The GeForce 256 completely changed the game by handling graphics on its own. This gives your computer more capacity to handle more demanding tasks, such as gaming. This product was truly godsend because it happened to be around the same time when the internet bubble burst, and many tech companies didn't survive the crash. But thanks to GeForce 256, Nvidia sold millions of units, saving the company from bankruptcy once again. In the decade post-dot-com crash, a quiet revolution began to reshape the computing industry. The early 2000s saw a surge in digital graphics, gaming, and personal computer. Global internet users grew from 400 million to over 2 billion, and popular games like Final Fantasy and World of Warcraft were all born in this era, which demand for faster GPUs. Nvidia, having survived the crash, was perfectly positioned to capitalize on it. Throughout the 2000s, Nvidia rolled out a series of groundbreaking products. These innovations didn't just power games, they cemented Nvidia's reputation as the king of digital graphics. By the mid-2000s, Nvidia completely dominated gaming. But inside the company, a sense of fear was growing. They felt boxed in. They had been labeled as the gaming chip guy on the block. And they wanted to become more than just that.
Nvidia made a crucible decision that would change not only its own trajectory, but that of the entire technology industry. They would commit to AI computing. This was a giant pivot for our company. We're adding costs, we're adding people, we have to learn new skills. It took our attention away from our normal day-to-day competition in computer graphics and gaming. The company's focus was steered away from its core business. And it wasn't just in one place, it's all over the company. It was a wholesale pivot in this new direction.
In 2006, Nvidia introduced CUDA, the foundation of the artificial intelligence as we know it today. CUDA is a total game changer as it allows you to do much more than just gaming.
What used to be impossible to do, you can now do in real time. The imagination kind of goes wild. Whether it's in imaging or movies or film or whether it's for doctors or scientists, all of a sudden the computer looks very different to you because we've effectively shortened or gave them a time machine, if you will.
It was first discovered on a university campus. At Stanford, a young researcher named Andrew Ng remembered his students telling him about CUDA.
I remember at Stanford, my students were telling me, hey Andrew, there's this thing called CUDA, not that easy to program, but it's letting people use GPUs for something different. Could we build a server to use GPUs and see if they could scale up deep learning? That server wound up being what we use for our first deep learning experiments to train neural networks. We started to see 10x or even 100x speedups.
Researchers from Toronto to New York were all reaching out to Nvidia, testing CUDA's power, and realizing that these chips could now train neural networks. And Nvidia, they were sitting on the gold mine. But remember, in 2010, AI had no market, no business model, and no clear future. It was a gamble that might never pay off. Yet Jensen Huang spent billions into R&D, hiring the best researchers in the industry, and betting that one day the world would need this power.
The market for AI chips in 2012, 2014, 15, it was a $0 billion market. And Jensen always likes to say that, we're investing in $0 billion markets. This would be spending R&D dollars on a market that may never materialize.
Over the next decade, Nvidia doubled down on AI and secretly laying the foundation for what will later become the single dominant force in accelerated computing. Through CUDA software platform, Nvidia shifted from a company that only sells gaming GPUs to powering data centers, providing cloud computing services, and solving autonomous driving problems. Throughout the same period, the company also released a series of CUDA-powered new GPU chips and GPU architectures, each new chip with better performance and AI computational power than a prior generation. The Harbor 2022 series was specifically built for large language model trainings, positioning the company perfectly for the explosion of generative AI like Chat GPT. During the same period, Jensen will make a few more acquisitions to further expand Nvidia's full-stack data center infrastructure. The most noteworthy being the 2019 acquisition of Mellanox for $6.9 billion, the largest acquisition so far. Mellanox transformed Nvidia into an AI powerhouse, allowing the company to now connect tons of GPUs together at insanely high speed. Instead of having each chip work on its own, Mellanox technology gave Nvidia the ability to command thousands of chips at once, turning the company into one giant, unified supercomputer ready to dominate the market. Little did they know, all of those years of AI research and spending was about to pay off big time. It all started with a small research lab called OpenAI. You might not have heard of it before, but you've definitely met its creation, Chat GPT. Chat GPT took the world by storm, reaching 100 million users within the first 2 months. It was clear to anyone at this time that AI race is officially here.
Reasons we got interested in AI from the very beginning is that we always viewed our mission as a timeless mission. It's to organize the world's information and make it universally accessible and useful. We always knew we needed to have a deeper breakthrough to make progress.
In 2023, Google first launched its own Gemini AI, Microsoft quickly followed with Bing AI, and Meta rolled out its own Llama AI. Billions of dollars are now pouring into AI infrastructure.
OpenAI and AMD announcing a 5-year AI data center deal.
OpenAI has signed a $300 billion deal with Oracle for cloud computing power.
Nvidia saying it's going to invest $100 billion in OpenAI. It's sparking a global tech rally.
Meta is paying nearly $15 billion for a scale AI stake.
We've created a brand new industry called AI infrastructure.
Many predict that the AI boom will dramatically change how people live and work.
Thanks to its AI chips and those years of investment, Nvidia is now ready to reap those rewards.
Nvidia at after-hours highs on the back of a record-breaking earnings beat, a 10-for-1 stock split, and a 262% jump in sales. The stock now well over $1,000 a share.
So AI tech giant Nvidia has reported a blowout quarter.
Obviously, a blowout report. I think everybody's expectations were sky high, and Nvidia took it to the moon. I mean, it just really went high.
Nvidia shares have been performing well, up 90% this year, and its earnings report will certainly impact the AI trade.
Nvidia shares up over 2,000% in the last 5 years.
Nvidia is truly the envy of the world. Revenue is up by 265%. Imagine that, 265% up.
Nvidia's revenue barely broke above $10 billion in most recent years, but it has now taken to new heights and a record $60 billion revenue for 2024 and $130 billion expected for 2025.
XAI, Gemini, all the open sources, biological models, physical AI models, everything in the world runs on Nvidia.
Nvidia's stock has exploded as a result, overtaking household technology companies. Jensen saw his own net worth skyrocketing, making him the 8th richest person in the world with a $172 billion net worth, becoming an overnight celebrity, and is known for his signature leather jackets.
Do you like my jacket?
It got so popular that the jacket was once selling for $8,999 a piece, and is currently sold out. Nvidia's rise has elevated Jensen Huang to the world stage. He's spoken with the prince from the Middle East, met with senior Chinese officials. Jensen has quite literally become a close business ally to President Donald Trump as well. The company's most advanced chip, Blackwell, have basically become the world's hottest commodity, and the least that Trump wants is for China to get their hands on it, banning chip exports to China and blacklisting Chinese entities. In response to this, Chinese regulators urged firms to stop buying Nvidia chips for state-funded data centers. And just 2 years ago, Nvidia controlled 95% of Chinese AI market. Today, that number is 0.
We are 100% out of China. And so China is 0% of, we went from 95% market share to 0%. And so I can't imagine any policymaker thinking that that's a good idea.
But Nvidia chips demand is so overwhelming everywhere else in the world that the company still hit a $5 trillion valuation without China.
Here it is, above $5 trillion for that market cap for Nvidia. Just yesterday, we were talking about Microsoft and Apple being above $4 trillion.
And Nvidia says, hold my beer, and here we are at $5 trillion.
Jensen even said that demand is so far ahead of supply that Nvidia is sold out through 2026. But with all the spending and hype around AI, people are starting to get a little bit nervous. Remember, just a little bit over 5 years ago, Nvidia was still a relatively unknown company, and today, it is one of the largest companies on the planet. The AI mania has spread to other companies as well. Oracle shares jumped 40% after announcing bullish AI outlook, and Intel stock surged 22% after Nvidia announced a strategic investment in the company, the best day in 38 years. But the problem is, companies are increasingly relying on that to fund their spendings, and that's a red flag.
Maybe 4 years ago, Google was spending less than $30 billion per year. This year, that number is going to be over $90 billion. And if you collectively add what all the companies are doing, we have well over $1 trillion of investment going in building the infrastructure for this moment.
Many people are now comparing this moment to the early 2000s internet bubble that wiped out $5 trillion in market value and destroyed countless life savings. Looking at the way the AI mania is spreading, people start to wonder if any of this spending is really sustainable. But Nvidia's latest earnings seem to indicate that the AI boom isn't slowing down anytime soon. The company posted a record quarterly revenue of $57 billion. And quote from Jensen,
"Business is very, very strong. Sales are off the charts for Blackwell. And Nvidia GPUs in the cloud are sold out. We got plenty of Blackwells to sell you."
With the way Nvidia's business is going, it seems that Jensen could finally take some time to enjoy himself. In a recent trip to South Korea, he was seen having some fried chicken with the CEO of Samsung and Hyundai at a popular local restaurant called Kambu Chicken. For those who couldn't make it inside, he brought the chicken out on the street to share with fans, and even paid for everyone's food in the restaurant that night.
The chicken wings was so good. Have you been here before? It's incredible, right?
And then something wild happened. Kambu Chicken isn't even a publicly traded company, but that didn't stop Korean investors from buying out stocks in any companies even remotely connected to fried chicken. Poultry processor stock went up 30%, and even a company that makes chicken frying robots also jumped. Jensen's growing influence has become synonymous with Nvidia's rising global dominance, and with the company's expanding impact on the world of artificial intelligence.
Everybody suddenly wants to know where we came from. I find it humorous that where the hell these guys come from? We thought they were just gaming, and suddenly the CUDA stuff, it allowed us to make a difference in markets that weren't gaming, which I think then helped people value the fact that gaming was such a strong market and such an economically large market. We did what was necessary to continue to move the needle, stay in business long enough to let the ideas come together. I met somebody the other day and she said, "Oh, how do you feel about your success?" And I said, "Well, feels like this overnight success was 30 years in the making."
Say what you want about AI, but one thing that's undeniable is that AI is driving real-world productivity and creating new opportunities and industries that never would have existed before.
One of the scientists that I saw was in Taiwan, and he was a quantum chemist. And I was in Taiwan at the time, and he reached out to me and said, "Come and see something." And I went to NTU. He opened his closet, and there was this giant array of GeForce cards sitting on all these shelves. He said, "I built my own personal supercomputer." And he said to me that because of your work, he's able to do his work in his lifetime.
To understand how Jensen Huang became the man he is today, we need to go back in history. Jensen Huang was born in Taiwan in 1963. At age 5, his family moved to Thailand for his father's job as a chemical engineer. But as the Vietnam War escalated, the region became unstable, so his father sent the children to the United States in search for better opportunities. At just age 9, Jensen and his brother would start a new life in the United States, living with relatives in Washington. His uncle, misunderstanding a brochure, enrolled Jensen and his brother in what he thought was a prestigious boarding school, but turned out to be a reform school for troubled youth in rural Kentucky. And being a small Asian kid with an accent in a reform school doesn't usually end well. For 2 years, Jensen faced constant bullying. One story goes that one of his roommates was a 17-year-old illiterate boy covered in tattoos and knife scars, and Jensen made a deal with him. He'll teach the boy how to read English, and in return, he would teach Jensen how to do bench presses. At Oneida, Jensen cleaned toilets, washed floors, and even learned to play table tennis. He got so good that he became a nationally ranked table tennis player, even achieving a third-place finish in a junior doubles at the US Open Table Tennis Championship at age 15. After 2 long years, Jensen would reunite with his parents in Oregon, skip 2 grades to attend Oregon State University, to study electrical engineering at age 16, the youngest kid in the class.
I was 16 when I went to college, and when I met my wife, I was 17. She was 19, and so I was the youngest kid in school, in class.
On weekends, Jensen would work at a local Denny's restaurant as a dishwasher and waiter. He would later return to Denny's for an interview, and this time they have a plaque for him to indicate that a $1 trillion company was launched here.
So we came here, right here to this Denny's, sat right back there, and the 3 of us decided to start the company. Frankly, I had no idea how to do it, and nor did they. None of us knew how to do anything.
Jensen and his wife Lori would later donate over $2 million to help fund Oneida Baptist Institute's new dormitory and classrooms for students. Reflecting back on his experience at Oneida, Jensen chose to look past those unpleasant experiences. Instead, he said, "He taught me resilience, grit, and the value of hard work."
In the late 60s, my father came to New York City for technical training, was amazed by America, and was determined to raise his family in this incredible country. In 1973, with all their savings, they sent my older brother and me to America. We didn't go to New York City, but Oneida, Kentucky. OBI was the only international boarding school my parents could barely afford, but it was our door to America, and here we realized our father's dream. At OBI, I crossed the Red Bird River each morning, over the worn-out swinging bridge to attend the elementary school on the other side. I was 9. My roommate got me into weightlifting. We went to church twice a week. On Sunday nights, we looked forward to ABC's Sunday night movie. My chore over the summer was to clean all the bathrooms of the boys' dorm. At night, I'd help the custodian fill the pop machines, and he would give me a pop every now and then. I met Ben Bays, whom I stay in touch with to this day. I loved my time at Oneida. OBI was the first big break of my life. I wouldn't have known it while cleaning the bathrooms.